are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me ye can do nothing. Jesus said, yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Look at your neighbor, say, you are a branch. The other day I was cleaning up my pit bushes. I have a line of variegated pit bushes against my building. I hadn't done nothing with them in a long time. I decided I need to get out there and clean them up. I'm noticing something about my pit bushes. They go from the corner of the building all the way down to the other side, and right at this corner I got a water spigot. I noticed the bushes that are right next to the water are tall and nice and bushy and leafy and strong, and they look good. You go a little bit further down away from it, those don't look all that good. They're starting to get more wiry, less leaf, a little more curl to them. And you get on further down. I even found some dead bushes in there while I was messing around with it. The further that you get away from that water, the worse those bushes look. Jesus, talking about the Holy Ghost, he compared it to a well of living water springing up on the inside of you. He told the lady at the well, he said, the water you drink here, you drink it, you're going to get thirsty again. He said, but if you drink of the water that I give you, you'll never get thirsty again. Now, we know he was talking about the Holy Ghost. Holy Ghost is compared to water, right? You can't live without water. We were talking about it earlier. 3 days, man, you're dead without water. So I noticed these plants that were close to the source were strong. I noticed the ones that were further away were weaker. I want you to know something. When I planted them bushes there, they were all the same size. They were all in the same health. Basically the same bushes. Cost me the same amount of money for the one I put up front as the one I put in the back. I also want you to know that when I put them there, I watered them. And for the following few days, I watered those bushes. And they did good. And gradually the roots took up. They grew good. And I want you to know, the first day that I didn't go out there and water those bushes, nothing happened. They look the same. When you move away from the source, when you get away from the water, when we get away from the Holy Ghost, the first day, there's no difference. You don't feel no different. You don't start drooping, and you don't die the next day. You miss your prayer one day in the morning, and that's basically what we're talking about here, getting in touch with the Holy Ghost prayer. But the first day you miss that prayer, friend, you don't notice that. Tony, that bush looked just as good after that day without water as it did before. But as time went on, progressively I watered them less and less. And progressively, slowly, so slowly that I didn't even notice the change, things started happening to those bushes that were the furthest away from the water source. And when we quit, when we lose our prayer life, when we're not getting close to God, it doesn't happen overnight, man. Most of you guys know this stuff. I think all of us have been at different levels and different places in our walk with God. We've been way away from the water source, and we've been right up next to it. And a lot of times, usually we're somewhere in the middle. But that first day, nothing changes. We feel just the same. Just like Samson hopping up out of Delilah's lap, shook himself, got up and walked on. But we know the story. He did that enough times until finally one day he stood up and shook himself, and it was different. I don't want to ever get to that place. The first thing that happened with those bushes is the growth slowed down. They didn't wilt, they didn't die, they didn't turn brown, they didn't get that. The first thing that happened, the new growth slowed down. Now the bushes closest to the water source are as tall as this pulpit and bushy and leafy and shiny and pretty, and the ones furthest away are gangly and no leaves, and bad looking. we don't notice it, but when we're not in contact with God praying, we're not growing anymore. Now, maybe we're not going backwards at that moment in the very beginning. Maybe I'm not falling back, but I'm certainly not growing. The next thing happens to them, I notice, the leaves. You pull them off, you squeeze them, you can hear them cracking. A good wet bush, you can squeeze that leaf, and you can let it go. You'll never hear a thing, and it'll unfold right back to the shape it was in. You take them old brittle leaves and squeeze them, and they start cracking. They'll crush in your hand. They're so dry. When the pressure's on, friend, instead of being able to bounce back, handle it, I crack. I fail. I sin. I've moved away from that water source, and the least bit of pressure begins to crack. It is water. Prayer is water. Holy Ghost is water. And we need it every day. Have you ever seen your ground when it hadn't rained in a long time, how it cracks? Go out there to your bush, it needs watering, and dump a 5-gallon bucket of water on it. That plant probably don't even need 5 gallons all week. Right? Just give it 5 gallons all at one time. How much good do you think it's going to do it? Very little. You know why? Can't absorb it. The ground's too hard. It's too dry. It's going to run right off. We come into church. I come into church, and I think if I can just get into a good downpour of the Holy Ghost on a Sunday night and let God just bless me and speak in tongues and shout and carry on, let the Holy Ghost just get me real good, I shouldn't have to pray at least for a week. But you know what? It doesn't work that way. We need that water every day. That plant needs a little bit of water every day. It's just like the manna that God gave the Israelites in the wilderness. It's a little bit every day. You're not going to get enough, man, to carry you through for the week or the month. You can't do it. You're going to get weak. These plants are variegated, called variegated pittosporum. It's not a natural state. You don't find variegated plants normally that I know of in nature. There's just not a lot of them out there. You don't find variegated this and variegated that. Usually people have taken and made a plant variegated. So it's not its natural state. So you got a plant here that's not existing in its natural state. And as long as you keep things running right and you give it the right nutrients, you give it plenty of water, for the most part it will stay that way. But I have found that when that plant starts running dry and it starts getting weak and it's getting further and further away from that water source, first thing starts happening is I'll see a little bud of leaves come out right in the middle of all that variegated bush. It'd be green, solid green. I've noticed even the plants closest to the water source do that. Even the ones that are drinking water all the time get a little bit of green coming out. You know why? Because it's not in its natural state. It is not naturally a variegated bush. There is two natures in that bush. We're not any different, friend. If you got the Holy Ghost, there are two natures living inside of you. Look at your neighbor and say, I'm a variegated branch. The Bible says we're to sanctify ourselves. We're to cleanse ourselves from all filthiness and naughtiness. But that's my job. So anything that I see out of my old nature coming up, I need to pluck it. I need to get it out. Because it's going to be in conflict with this new nature that I have from God. Now, when I got further away from that water source, there's more and more of these branches that are green. And there's a lot more weeds. And I'm doing a lot more damage to my plants. And I'm not breaking off little buds, I'm breaking off whole branches. And sometimes that branch goes all the way down to the ground, to the root. And I got to take and kick that thing off and break it off at the ground and hope that that whole plant don't turn back green. Because that's what it's working on. Because it's too far from the water. If we're not praying, if I'm not praying like I need to be praying, like I know I need to be praying, and it can't be hit and miss, I've got to pray daily. Yeah, you get called to the hospital. Yeah, you can get up and skip prayer that day and go to the hospital and see somebody that just got in a car wreck. Yeah, you'll live. But you need to be praying the next morning. I need that water every day. God help us. Whatever God's got to do to us to keep us in the Holy Ghost, to keep us near that water, to keep us in that state where we're communing with Him and living with Him and full of the Holy Ghost and right. Do whatever you got to do to me. If you got to break off some limbs, Lord, break off some limbs. Don't let me revert back to what I used to be, God. I'm looking at them bushes and I'm thinking about Jesus when He walked by that fig tree with the disciples, and there was no fruit on that full-grown fig tree, and Jesus cursed it. Said, you'll never bear fruit again. That thing withered within moments. Where are you at? Where am I at? In this cultivation thing, if you're the branch, friend, have you looked at your leaves lately?